Everybody to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Greetings, everyone, and those that are watching this evening. We've just concluded an executive session, which we discussed collective bargaining. We have the minutes of February 1st, 2010 regular meeting. Mr. Yule.
Yes, before,
Don't have them.
Oh, we don't have
They're
them?
in the packet.
there was the last meeting, the last meeting, we did not vote on the minutes because I wanted to be sure
All
some
right, okay.
information was
Well, we can
included.
skip that. What?
We didn't get them.
Oh, we didn't get it, so we can't discuss them? Okay.
We're waiting for the changes. Before we can put them in the packet, we need the changes.
So,
Sorry.
all right.
Sure.
Correspondence, yellow sheets, if we're
These
gonna
are
pass
changes?
them.
Those are, this ones, I should say.
Actually, pass them down to Leanne if you don't mind.
Will those changes discussed at the meeting I missed?
Yes. They weren't discussed. They
Weren't
were-
discussed,
they were-
he
they were
just-
offered.
right.
They just weren't submitted, okay. Anyone here for public comment? Mrs. Castro.
Deanna Casper, 9 Bridal Way. Mr. Chair, members of the Board of Selectmen, it's been a little while since I've had the opportunity to be in front of you. I just wanted to give you an update and extend an invitation on a couple of different things. Even though we have not been here as often as we have in the past, members of NRU and Stanford Children have been very, very busy trying to accomplish some very specific things. This Friday, I'm glad members of the Board of, school committee members are here too. This Friday, from 9 to 10 o'clock, at the Flint Library Activity Room, we're going to host a joint session for North Reading United for Education and Stanford Children. At that particular session, we've been trying to encourage and advocate for younger parents, or I should say parents of younger students, because I'm pretty young, to get involved and join our advocacy work. You're all invited to attend. At that session, I believe Bob is going to give a high-level overview of the budget and the unique concerns of the budget cycle this particular year. We're also going to have a statewide organizer from Stanford Children attend. We're going to focus on a session called Advocacy Works, and we're hoping for everyone who leaves that session to have a to-do and a responsibility to get involved and become active citizens in North Reading. So again, I wanted to thank those of you who are coming to attend. I know Jeff's going to be there, and Sean will try to be there as well. The reason why I singled those folks out is because in the past, we've held North Reading United for Education and Stanford Children events, and those few folks have been very proactive about getting involved in those activities. My second invitation is for all of you in this room to participate in a Stanford Children hosted Day on the Hill, which is March 23rd, and the biggest responsibility of time is from 10 o'clock in the morning to 12. We have been invited to use the Gardner Auditorium again this year. Last year, over 500 citizens from across Massachusetts filled that room to capacity. And not everybody can use that room. I think it's important to point that out. That room can only be used when Speaker DeLeo actually hosts that particular room. And this is the second year in a row that Stanford Children has been hosted by Speaker DeLeo. There will be guest speakers at 11 o'clock. We will be visiting legislators, as we did last year. Last year, over 7,500 postcards from parents and citizens and local officials were delivered to legislators. This year, we're doing virtual signs. It's going to be very exciting, very interactive, and very colorful, so they cannot be missed. They will also be delivered to every legislator, and we'll have very specific asks as we have before. We will probably leave North Reading and carpool from the same Dunkin' Donuts without a bus this year, as we have in the past, and very fortunately, over a dozen or so North Reading residents have participated each and every year. A couple of years ago, there were over 2,000 members of Stanford Children that participated in this event in an outside forum. The last thing I wanted to let you know is that even though we have not been here over the last several months, Jane Swart and I meet once out of every 4 Sundays with people from across the Commonwealth, and we're representing North Reading on behalf of Stanford Children, advocating for things that are important to education funding. This particular fall has been extremely challenging for us because most of that advocacy was based on the Education Reform Act, or an act relative to the achievement gap, which was very challenging for us personally because it was not an activity that was going to bring an awful lot of money back to North Reading. In fact, the amount of money was going to be minuscule. We got involved in the debate because we wanted to make sure that education funding was protected if charter schools were going to become a forum by which this legislation was going to come down, which did. I hope that any innovation that comes from this act will be sometime a long-term benefit to North Reading, and I'm not disappointed that we engaged, but I do think it was a huge distraction. We are back on track, and on the Day in the Hill, we'll be back on track with our adequacy study, advocacy, and also health reform issues, as we've talked about in the past. So we are busy at work, and I just wanted to update you on that. I just wanted to remind you that we're active, we are mobilized, and we are motivated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. Anyone else for public comment? Okay, we'll move on. Legal bills for January 2010. Mr. Belkonis?
Board members, you'll have a copy of the legal bills that are in the packet, refer to the pink copy, number 5. The total is $6,983.01. You'll note that we have $3,762 in labor-related cost, much of it attributable to ongoing labor disputes involving the police union. There are a number of other general services involved. You'll note on the bottom of page 2 to the top of page 3, there's a administrative appeal that's involved also. And I would so recommend the board approve this amount.
Any questions for the town administrator?
Nope.
Mr. Yule?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve legal bills for January 2010 in the amount of $6,983.01 as follows. Complement and Page, PC General, $2,759.14. Complement and Page, PC Labor, $3,762.50. Complement and Page, PC Water, $461.37. Total, $6,983.01.
Do I hear a second? Second by Mr. O'Leary. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Can we get through this lease agreement in 5
Sure.
minutes?
Yep, we've seen them before. They're pretty similar to what we've had in the past. The purple copy in your packet, labeled number 6, telecommunications lease agreement. The town had put a request for proposal out back in the month of December. We received one bid. The bid was received from Metro PCS. It's for the Swan Pond water tank, which is located at 55 Swan Pond Road. The amount of the annual lease payment is $24,000. There's a 3% annual percentage increase. The total value of the lease over a 10-year term is $275,133. There's also 2 additional 5-year renewal options that can be exercised up to a period of 20 years. Typically, what's involved in this is once you vote to approve, the applicant then needs to appear before the CPC. They need to obtain a special permit. That will be done if the board is favorable this evening. And then the other item that typically takes place is there needs to be a corresponding vote of town meeting, and that was previously accomplished. This would be the second cell tower antenna on this site. As you know, the town has been quite successful in marketing various municipal water tank facilities throughout town. We have 3 locations with cell tower antennae on it. I'm in the process of negotiating another lease right now. The only item in here that's should be noteworthy for the board, if you would refer to the remaining provisions of the lease are almost identical to what we've seen. But if you refer to page 5, item number 10C, you'll note that the lessee has an opportunity to terminate the lease. However, if there is a termination that's exercised by the lessee, they owe a one-time penalty fee equal to 12 months back rent for such termination. What we're starting to see these cell tower companies who are reluctant to enter into long-term agreements because they think there's gonna be some new technology that's out there which will render these major cell tower sites obsolete. So that was a provision that we did negotiate with a penalty clause in the contract, and I would entertain any questions that you have and would recommend you approve.
Discussion?
It goes before the zoning board of appeals, not the CPC.
No,
Right.
it is CPC.
It is
It's
CPC now?
quirky, yeah,
Okay.
it's gotta go to CPC.
Yeah, what I see going on is that wireless is, the general broad term for cell phone technologies is actually growing, not shrinking. And that, yes, there's some new technologies, but they're still gonna require antennas. And I think that, in spite of the fact that there's been, this clause in here to terminate, if you think about it, there was a period of time when we couldn't find anybody that wanted to lease the towers. And all of a sudden, the people that are going out to get the leases aren't necessarily Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile. They're companies that are buying up this real estate and then leasing it out, subleasing it. Mr. Yule. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I don't have,
It
no, I
just,
don't have. a question.
is there a kicker in here in relation to if they put people on, we get a piece of the action?
No, this is, this was one that was put out, this location was put out to bid originally, so that there's no kicker, so to speak, on it, and we would have to, every time we find out that there's anyone that's interested, we have to actually go out and do an RFP on it. The two other locations have a, what do I call it, a sublease provision in there where we own a piece of it, and there's one of those that's in the work right now. This one's a little bit unique because it's an older location.
And they weren't looking for that?
They, of course, they would have liked that, but we were kind of stuck in the fact that the original award on this was awarded without that language. So it's a non-exclusive location.
Mr. Yule.
Mr. Chairman, I move to sign the telecommunications lease agreement between the town of North Reading and Metro PCS Massachusetts, 55 Swan Pond Road.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Yule, seconded by Mr. O'Leary. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Next item on our agenda is informational hearing. I